Good morning. How good it is to be together. What a feeling. Just look around at everyone. I'm a little overwhelmed. Thank you for wearing your masks. The worship leaders will not be masked when they are speaking, but other than that, we do ask that you wear, and our musicians will not be masked when they are singing, but other than that, we ask you to wear your masks at all times because not everyone can get vaccinated yet. So until that, we will keep wearing masks inside for the safety of all. So thank you for doing that. So good morning and welcome to First Parish Brewster. We are a Unitarian Universalist welcoming congregation of people of diverse philosophies and beliefs, people of various cultures and races, sexual orientations, gender identities, abilities, and socioeconomic backgrounds. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your path, may this be a place of rest and restoration on your journey. For those of you who may be first-time visitors this morning, welcome. Welcome on this morning, which we make sacred by our presence together. And it's an extra special morning to be together this morning. And a big welcome, let's give a wave to everybody who's streaming on Facebook. So the camera's over there, so we can wave at them. I'm Reverend Jessica Clay, the minister of this congregation. Happy to be welcoming you to the service this morning with Chuck Ross and Twinks Hastings leading this service with me. Our musicians this morning are Anna Gligg, Pam McLean, Kaylee Cullen, and Ricky Pollo. Welcome. In community news announcements, our services are recorded and are available on our YouTube channel midweek. Who likes to watch our YouTube channel when they're just looking for something fun to do? Okay, I'm telling you, it's a pretty happening spot. So it's so good to be together this morning. Many of you have already been hugging each other. This is an opportunity to practice consent with hugs. Please ask before you automatically go in for a hug with someone. Not everyone is comfortable with hugs just yet. Not everyone is even comfortable sitting in the same pew with people just yet. So remember, we do have our balcony, which we have a couple of people up in, so you're always welcome to go up there if down here feels a little too crowded. And please do ask for consent. We get so excited when we see each other, but we should always be practicing consent, and this is a good opportunity to practice that. Today at 4 p.m., church bells across the Cape will toll for 5 minutes to honor and remember those lost to COVID-19. Also, so our church bell will toll at that time. Also, there will be an interfaith service of grief, healing, and hope at at Asselton Park, I don't know if I pronounced that right, in Hyannis on the corner of South and Ocean Streets. Who here has filled out the online poll for name tags? Oh, look at all those hands. Who here has yet to fill it out? Okay, there's no shame in it. There is no shame. Who here doesn't even know what I'm talking about? Totally okay. This is for members. We're ordering new permanent name tags that are going to be these beautiful hard plastic name tags. Maureen, would you raise your hand so everyone can see you? That's Maureen Osborne from our membership committee who's wearing the new name tag. And she will be out front after the service with our membership book, if you've been thinking about joining, and her laptop so she can help fill out that form online for you if you have been meaning to do it. And why you need to fill out the form is we want to put everyone's pronouns on these name tags so that we can be as welcoming to all and we don't just make assumptions on pronouns. Thank you for doing that, Maureen. Next Sunday, you're invited to join us on Zoom as we hear from First Parish Brewster members who attended this year's General Assembly. All are welcome online at 10 a.m. And our next in-person service, does anyone know when it is? Oh my goodness, you all studied up this morning. I love it. So ends our announcements. Welcome to worship this morning. It is really so good to be together.
Your short view of humanity, and look up and see that we are not alone in our separateness. We are not forsaken or forlorn. We can be each other's dreams, unrestrained by desperation. We can see beyond the horizon of setback and defeat and know that others have journeyed further than we have. They have seen so much and not lost themselves to resignation. Arriving on these shores of hope, embrace the here and now, the blessings and the presence of holy matters. Here now, we are together and we are stronger for it. Whether you are forlorn or uplifted, let us together enter worship as if it was a new matter, a new day, a new chance at life.
Good morning and welcome back, First Parish, Brewster. I'm Chuck Ross, a member of the Worship Associates, and I'm so glad to be back on this chancel. As many of you know, I'm also a member of the choir, and one of my favorite things about singing with that group is the opportunity to enjoy the view from this spot of all your faces and of the light coming through the balcony windows, even on a gloomy day like this. As it turns out, I was also scheduled to present a call to worship on the Sunday of the weekend that our campus went into lockdown. And my last time in this building with other members was that week's Wednesday night choir rehearsal. Going back through old emails a couple days ago, I reread how rapidly plans had shifted that week. On Wednesday, Jessica was corresponding with Anna and me about plans for that week's order of service on wisdom and aging. On Thursday, those plans were scrapped in favor of a new theme, instructions for a pandemic. And on Friday, a general email went out, closing down the campus for an indefinite period. A note in that week's weekly angle said there'd be no service that Sunday, and we'd be switching to online services on something called Zoom with the next week's Sunday. It raised some old anxieties, but I continued to follow email threads from Jessica, Twinks, Donica, and others from the next few weeks. I was a coming-of-age mentor, and plans needed to be made for the middle schoolers. Donica was recovering from a serious shoulder injury, but announced plans for a Zoom choir gathering. And that effort led to an even bigger effort by Donica, Anna, and a core group of choir members and other volunteer musicians to ensure music retained its vital presence in our weekly worship. I offer many thanks to all of you in that group, because you had stamina for ongoing Zoom performances that I simply could not muster over the long haul. And a long haul it has been. By my count, it's been 70 weeks since we've been able to gather in full in this space. But that has not stopped us. In emails from the earliest week or two of the pandemic, there was an innocent thought that lockdowns would be over by the summer. Certainly we'd be back in the sanctuary by September. But even as those rose-colored predictions fell away, our staff stepped up with online gatherings, rehearsals, and worship opportunities. I have so much gratitude for all your hard work, all of you. And through all of this, we actually added members locally, but thanks to the internet and Zoom, nationally and internationally as well. This whole process, the ability of this community to step up, support each other, and persevere, has reminded me of memories of another great challenge our congregation faced, when there were questions about whether this very building would be able to survive. Those of you who've been around for a while will remember that time a dozen or so years ago, when we went from a front door that wouldn't close quite right to, holy cow, we've got to raise $1.4 million, raise the church, and pour a new foundation. Back then, there was so much moisture infiltration that the walls behind me, they were stained with mold. And paint would start peeling within a month or two of going up. And we were cautioned against any stomping of feet because, well, we were afraid the congregation might end up in the dirt floor basement down below. We spent more than 2 years fundraising and more than a year of holding services at Stony Brook Elementary School. Members pitched in to paint, restore light fixtures, and paint to strip and refinish all of the pews. And we still enjoy the results of all those labors today. All of this work was to enable our homecoming on Christmas Eve in 2011. If you were there, I'm sure you'll remember the many tears of joy shed in thanksgiving for our reborn sanctuary that night. As the lights dimmed, while the choir and congregation raised their candles to sing Silent Night. Now that I think of it, that last Exodus was probably also right around 70 weeks. Look at how this congregation has grown in numbers and in purpose since that hardship. There are certainly still questions about the course this pandemic could take. The last week has had a lot of disturbing news. However, our ability to pull ourselves out of a literal hole in the ground has given me faith to believe that this congregation has the strength to adapt to whatever challenges this pandemic might throw at us going forward. And despite those uncertainties, I also think it's important to stop and recognize with thankfulness, as we did on that Christmas Eve a decade ago, at least this moment of being able to gather together and greet one another again in this space, and without the need of having to remind each other to unmute ourselves first. And so, as we light our chalice, let us give ourselves permission to set outside anxieties aside and enjoy the simple pleasure of gathering together in love and in thanksgiving. And now, please rise as you are able to join in singing hymn number 295 in the gray hymnal, Wake Now My Senses. Oh, and also, please remain standing after the hymn as we will recite our covenant on the back cover of the order of service. Oh, 298, sorry. Yes, this works. So, the FPB, pardon? Oh, yeah, so there are more orders of service in the back if you don't have them and you didn't hear me earlier. Number 1, we respect the wisdom of all in a friendly and loving manner. Everyone deserves to be heard, including our children and youth. We approach one another as spiritual partners. Before speaking, we take a breath and think, is it true? Is it kind? Will it help? We speak directly and openly with empathy, compassion, and kindness. We use I statements and respect healthy boundaries. We act in good faith according to our UU values. We listen carefully to the decisions made by leadership and expect our leaders to honor the voices of those who disagree. When needed, we follow processes of reconciliation and resolution through right relations. We embrace the questions and engage directly, listening deeply. When conflict appears, we see it as an opportunity for change and growth. Understanding our differences, we allow for missteps and welcome feedback. We seek the goal of reconciliation, encouraging peer and social support when needed. We aspire to be our best selves. Whenever we need to, we have the capacity to gently remind and call each other back into covenant, into the widening circle of our loving community.
So sometimes when I'm overexcited, my body does this wiggle, and I feel that way this morning. Like, we're in our sanctuary after 70 weeks. I am so excited to be here. Is anyone else feeling the wiggles? This is so awesome. And so I wanted to share this morning, I think we're talking about the pandemic, we're still in the pandemic, but some of the stories and some of the ways that we got through this pandemic. And, I work with our children and youth and our families, and some of their stories from this time have been amazing. Think back, I know some of you have long been empty nesters, and if you can imagine when your kids were toddlers and you were stuck home for 12 months with them, homeschooling them. Some of the struggles and some of those times have been unbelievably hard for our families, and there have been some unbelievable joys for our families to get to spend that time together. And so I feel this pandemic has been both and for a lot of people. And I see in my life there were so many struggles. I am a social person. I am a let's go places. Parades are my meditation. Disney is my quiet time. I am a loud people person, and so this pandemic, this isolation was hard, and I've come out of it stronger in that muscle of quiet reflection, and stronger as a person that can entertain myself for at least half an hour now. Like it's good. I have flexed that muscle. And there are so many stories from our children and youth that I want to share over this next year with all of you. And I have been really tuned into some stories of children and youth and other people from around the world, because I was very much we are in this pandemic on Cape Cod, and it's terrible, and we have to buy snow ale coffee by the gallon full because we're only going out every 2 weeks, and that was our experience. And then, I have family in Scotland and in Europe, and Scotland is still somewhat in lockdown, and globally, we're all in this globally, this pandemic, and the experiences have been so different. So this morning I wanted to share two stories from India, actually, and these are two voices from youth from India. And so this first story is from Shital, and she is from Delhi. After lockdown was announced, my mom began worrying about the daily wagers stranded in the city. Most migrant workers in the city do not have a roof on their heads. Many live in shelter homes, and many manage on roads in shaded corners. So dry rations are not much help to them. My mom wanted to help, and within a day of lockdown, she got permission from local authorities to serve food. She started cooking 10 meals per day, then 70 meals, and soon she was making 200 meals in big utensils borrowed from our caterer friends. The idea spread among my network of Art of Living, and Project Annapurna was born. The word spread. Volunteers said yes to every new request, even at times of fewer resources. Somehow the resources have come, and the team is now serving 8 shelter homes. As it happens, my family continues the tradition. My dad cuts the vegetables, my mom cooks, stirring with the big ladles, and I go out to distribute the food. My distribution point is a spot of rickshaw pullers who are generally happy to see me. They make demands, however, telling me they want to eat this or eat that. We give in because we want to reduce their anxiety, or else they could be breaking the lockdown rules and the virus could just be spreading more. But then my mom doesn't mind the demands. She is just happy cooking for them. Sometimes I wonder how she cooks so much food without getting tired. With a smile, she says, "I don't know." And the second story comes from a youth, Ishma from Mumbai. 50 positive cases, my father said, as I was about to go into those very streets with gloves and masks in my left hand and a packet of ration kits and food parcels in another. I assured him, "I'll be safe, Papa." My father looked tense. With a smile, I said with more confidence, "Nothing will happen." Outside, I distributed gloves and masks to other volunteers who were ready to reach out to people in need. We came across factory workers with no stoves at home, cancer patients living under the bridge, and domestic helpers with no savings. We distributed cooked food and ration kits to them. On many occasions, we've been stopped by the police for being out on the streets. They have always let us pass after we tell them why we were there. Once, somebody took us to a home of a handicapped elderly man who was surviving on plain rice and salt. When we went there with the ration kit, he said with tears in his eyes, "God has come to help me." The cases here have increased, 200 and counting. We are staying at home. However, we continue to reach people who need help. I have kept myself just a call away. And so these two stories, although they take place in India, I see the shadows of those reflected all over this community. Even when I heard stories of how much people were hurting or how much sadness was in our hearts, people were reaching out to each other, kids were reaching out to each other, families were helping one another, you all were helping families, and as hard as this pandemic was, coming out of the other side, I think is going to be one of the most beautiful things we have experienced together. And so for that, I feel blessed. And I also feel blessed that Jessica let me come and do this time for all ages, even though this is my month off. And I begged wholeheartedly to be allowed to sing When Our Heart Is in a Holy Place. Surprise! I have waited 70 weeks for this, so will you please rise and join us in the Teal hymn book. It's 1008, When Our Heart Is in a Holy Place.
Place, where our heart is in a holy place.
We're still getting the hang of hymns. You know, it's been a while. So now is the point in the service. We're going to have several moments in this service for you to name what these past 70 weeks have been like. And so we're going to begin by naming the losses of this time, because though this is a very celebratory morning that we're having here, and there will be much more celebration to come, there's also a lot of loss. Pam and group, you can come on up while I'm talking, it's fine. There's also a lot of loss, and I don't know if you, like me, are feeling some grief in your heart, some grief and fear at the fact that we're not out of the pandemic, but also out of all the losses of this past year plus. So Twinks is going to walk around with a mic. You are going to keep your mask on, and you're going to talk really loudly through your mask. And the mic will pick it up, and she will hold it for you so that you can name some of these losses in community. I know we have named them in the chat box, but this is a chance to name them in person and just to bear witness to each other. So I invite you, if you would like to share some of the losses of this time, please raise your hand, and Twinks will walk around, and I'll try and keep an eye out.
My friend Mark, who passed away last year.
He said his friend Mark, who passed away last year.
One of my loves is delivering Meals on Wheels, and I was so moved that over the course of the last year, 4 of my favorite elderly people did pass solely because of their extreme loneliness and isolation. And literally, death came because of that, and that's very sad.
Jenny, can we turn that mic up anymore?
Not being able to go to the memorial service for my beloved cousin Tom, and missing 2 long-awaited weddings in my family.
For my friend Rachel, who has long hauler's disease.
Not being able to visit my 97-year-old friend Jean Perkins in Maine.
I feel I lost my identity for a while when I was furloughed for a number of months.
I missed being with my grandson, William, 14, as his voice changed over the last year and a half. Yeah.
I also was not able to attend memorial service of my sister and the son of our best friends who died of a drug overdose.
The passing of my cousin, who was 58, who suffered for months with cancer and was in and out of the hospital. And the pain that people had to endure with being in and out of the hospital and not being with loved ones, but the wonderful care that they received from all of our healthcare workers and support that they received.
I had a cousin, Mitzi, who passed during the pandemic. He was well in his 90s and was still doing 20 push-ups a day, inspiring me to take care of my body as I age. And also, my Uncle Chet passed away during the pandemic, during the doctor's visit, but at least my aunt was there to be with him.
Our son was diagnosed with ALS in March.
I have one up here.
passed away in Miami, and I wasn't able to see.
I'd like to remember our sister Betsy Doble Ward, who left us. We miss her so much with her great sense of humor, her artistic, she's very artistic. She loved flower arranging and used to put us to shame with what she could do with a bouquet. We miss her very much.
Twinks in the back before you come over again.
I feel like we've probably all lost a layer of hope and belief. It feels like a loss.
There's been a loss of access to our usual logistical and emotional supports as a family, and just additional strain on relationships because of differing boundaries, and it's been really hard.
Oh, one more. Kathy.
For all of the people that work in the healthcare system, home health aides and nurses, doctors, and so many of them were really on the front line, put themselves at risk, and so many died.
Didn't think that one was on. Thank you for naming some of your losses. I know this is just a small picture of the many losses of this time that some of you thought about raising your hand, decided not to. Maybe some people in the balcony, maybe some people down here, or maybe some losses just feel too tender to share. So will you join me in a moment of prayer? I invite you to settle into your seat. If you have something in your hands, to set it down, to close your eyes or to cast them down. I've said this every week on Zoom, and I'm sure some of you were still checking your Facebook during that time. But you can't do that right now in here, so just take this moment, even if prayer isn't your thing. Just take this moment to be present to this space, to be present to some of the losses that were named here, to maybe the losses that are sitting on your heart. Holy One, God of many names, named and unnamed, great mystery that connects us all in this sacred sanctuary, that connects us to everyone streaming online. We lift up our hearts in this moment, our hearts that can feel both the joy of either seeing everyone in our sanctuary or actually being here, and also the sorrow and sadness of what these last 70 weeks have cost us, some of which is still being revealed. We lift up that we can hold both of these things at the same time and feel held in this community, and for that we are grateful. Help us to remember that we are a part of this community, even if this is the first time that we have been here, even if this is the first time that we have streamed. You are welcome here. You are beloved. When we cast our eyes upon each other, help us to see the divine in each other and to remember that we are held in this circle of love. Help us to hold tenderly the losses of these times and to send love towards ourselves and each other as we process and move forward. As we hear the birds singing during this prayer, help us to remember to go towards those things that comfort and soothe us, towards beauty and nature and music, companionship, connection, all of those things that help us to remember we're not alone. We give thanks for the many times over this past year plus that we were reminded that we are not alone. When someone called or someone wrote, when we reached out and someone answered, when we turned on Sunday morning Zoom worship, even though Zoom was not our thing, and then we saw the faces of so many beloveds. We give thanks on this morning for all of the people who made this vaccine possible, for all of the people who are still making safe choices so that we can gather in this space. We give thanks for this community which has made it through this time and will continue to make it through this pandemic together. Help us to remember that love is at our core and that love radiates out from us and to each other. Amen, and blessed be. So with all of the losses that we have carried through this pandemic, certain things have helped. Certain things have helped to be a balm in this time. And now Twinks will walk around and would like to hear from you of what helped. What helped you to make it through this time? What helped you to make it through the losses? What just helped you to make it through those 70 weeks? Who would like to share?
Vespers was a big help on Wednesday nights, a place to go, and thank you for that.
You're welcome. She said Vespers was a big help on Wednesday night.
This amazing faith.
Bridge Online.
Bridge Online.
Small group ministry existed. Being naturally introverted and realizing that all the more so.
Zoom yoga classes.
This community, and particularly the CYM program, and also performing acts of kindness for others.
Watching the courage and professionalism and dedication of all of our health professionals who had to persevere in the face of sometimes threats and ignorance and personal risk.
Our health and perseverance with recording on Zoom.
Living with people who I really, really like. And taking up a meditation practice.
Barry's bike tours.
Being able to get outside and hike the Punkhorn and the beaches of our beautiful natural place we live
Dr.
in.
Fauci, walking, and Vespers.
Getting together with friends in my yard and walks.
Much maligned Zoom that kept me in contact with this congregation and with friends whom I really don't see all that much when I have the opportunity to see them, but we were meeting regularly on Zoom. It was a real boost to my mental health.
being able to gather with the wabi-sabi dancers to create two beautiful pieces that wonderful Jenny Mary videoed. No surprise, dogs, and an unmentionable.
Does anyone in the balcony want to share? We can come up then. Okay. Vespers.
Netflix for me.
Right? Thank you for.
As a school teacher, it was a very difficult year, but having the high schoolers in, even if it was just part of the time, was life-saving.
Having more time to do the things I love and having an opportunity to have a point of transition in my life where I can focus on myself and not all the busyness around me, which I did not get the opportunity to do before.
Thank you for participating in that naming. I hope you continue to name these things with each other out on the plaza after the service. Each week we have the practice of splitting our plate, our offertory plate. Half of what is collected goes to the work of First Parish Brewster, and half goes to a worthy organization, sometimes in our community, sometimes nationally. This morning's split plate goes to the Cape Cod Council of Churches. For over 50 years, the Cape Cod Council of Churches has served low-income individuals and families through Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard, and Nantucket. They annually assist over 6,500 Cape Codders. They work closely with community organizations, churches, and volunteers to serve residents. Just a few of their programs, because it's really impressive all the work that they do, are a baby center, which provides critical basic baby needs to income-eligible families for infants up to the age of 3 on Cape Cod and the islands. They give families diapers, wipes, formula, gently used clothing, and equipment. They're all provided for free to over 500 babies every month. Another program they run is the Covenant to Care for foster families, which matches a Cape and Islands congregation with a foster care family, supporting that family and the children in its care. Parishes adopt a foster family in order to offer support and extras not covered by the state's financial allocation. They help fund such things as summer camp, bicycles, eyeglasses, and other things for those vulnerable children. They run the Hands of Hope Food Pantry, an outreach center which provides critical emergency assistance to low-income families in need in the Mid-Cape area, offering food, financial assistance to prevent evictions and homelessness, emergency sheltering, assistance with utility and medical bills, clothing, and small household goods. Each year, the pantry provides food for over 2,700 individuals and families. And they also run, what am I missing? Who's going to?
Immigration services.
Well, immigration services. Okay, I was looking for the Faith Family Kitchen, which many of us are very well connected with here at First Parish Brewster. So as you can see, this organization does a ton of work for individuals and families here on Cape Cod. There's a couple of ways you can give today. You can text to give. The number's in your order of service. You can give in cash or a check written out to First Parish Brewster in the offertory basket. Those of you online can mail a check to the office at 1 Harwich Road, or you can text to give as well. The number's on our website, or you can go to our website and donate. However you choose to give, thank you for your generosity to the work of First Parish. Thank you for your generosity to the work of the Cape Cod Council of Churches. The offertory will now be gratefully accepted. So our last opportunity for you to share this morning, until you go and share with each other out on the plaza, just to let you know, we're not doing coffee hour in the parish room for now. We'll see when we'll do it again. But we have this beautiful plaza you're welcome to join us on outside after the service. But our last opportunity for you to share is to reflect on what did you cultivate during this time that we have been physically separated. What did you cultivate? There is no right answer for this. You could say nothing, and that's totally fine. You could say naps. You could say doing the laundry. There is no right answer, but just to reflect on what did you cultivate. So Twinks, thank you for being our mic person. We'll move around and let's hear from you. What did you cultivate?
Discovering myself.
Discovering himself.
Relationships with English family through Trivial Pursuit games every Sunday.
Gratitude.
I taught a lot of people how to use Zoom.
Need it. Every book written by Louise Penny.
Okay.
Very new for me, sometimes taking dozens of breaks during the day just to observe, to think, to watch nature, just to listen and be. New behavior.
Kindness.
I'm always cultivating appreciation of what I have, and during the pandemic, I was really appreciating living on Cape Cod.
Learning to play ukulele.
Katie.
My relationship with my 2 children and turning my school-issued iPad into a digital audio workstation.
My gratitude for school. I will never take that for granted, ever, ever, ever again.
I cultivated better boundaries and a practice of more intentionally supporting my mental and emotional health.
Anyone in the balcony want to holler something out?
I have a stellar stack of UU textbooks higher than me.
There you go. Twinks cultivated getting certified. We really need to use every opportunity to celebrate. Anyone else? May you continue to share with each other what you cultivated during this time. During this pandemic, several friends and I chose to cultivate relationships. We scheduled monthly calls to check in with each other, something we had never done before. Can you all hear me? Okay. I made plans to send all sorts of letters, to finish my book that's been in process for several years now, and finally pick up the cello again. Let me tell you, none of those plans worked out, but I made plans. And life still happened in the pandemic. It was traumatic, and for many of us, the thought of adding something else on our list, on our to-do list, was simply overwhelming. So we cultivated space for quiet, time to connect, and time to turn our brains off, because the world was just too much in many of those moments. Now when I talk with or see friends that I haven't seen since before the pandemic, I often ask, so how was your pandemic? Because we went through this massive life-changing event, and a simple, how are you, just doesn't seem to cut it. And we're not fully out of it yet. How good it feels to be in our sanctuary. Yet the daily news reports of the Delta variant put the brakes on much excitement, and I know that for many of you, it was not without some hesitation that you decided to attend today, and I know that for many people online, it just didn't feel safe enough. We will be processing and reflecting on what we have gone through for a long time, emotionally, physically, and reflecting on the ways that we are changed, on how dependent we are on one another, on how much being together matters, and how fragile life is. And through this whole time, we had a presidential election, an insurrection at the Capitol. Many people of color were killed at the hands of the police. We heard the horrific news of the mass graves of the first people of Canada at schools meant to assimilate them. And for many white people, we have had this continued reckoning with our own internalized racism, with recognizing the ways in which many of us white people are complicit in systems of oppression, and with what is being asked of us now. And typically in regular times, we can gather together in this sanctuary, talk about what's occurring in the world, and make plans for action together. And this year has meant we couldn't do that, but it has encouraged us to grow and stretch in different ways, to embrace Zoom, to take on the work of reparations, to take on the work of passing the eighth principle, of committing again and again to the work of dismantling the systems of oppression that run our country, all in the midst of a pandemic. So during this time, I tried to cultivate space for quiet, space for rest, space to connect to